If you're trying to make any kind of meaningful, effective change in your life, you've come to the right place. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to yet another episode of We're Talking Shift. We are going to shift the focus to our kids on today's episode. With everything that has been happening over the past year plus, they have been massively affected, all ages. A whole new crop of challenges have come up, and many parents, I think, are having a really hard time talking to their kids about current events and explaining what's going on, not even just in our own country, but across the globe now. I know that many of you are parents, and so I thought that I'd bring in an expert to give you some guidance on how to talk to your kids, how to encourage them to talk to you, and how to determine when they're ready to hear certain things. So, my guest today, I'm so excited to have her on, is Florence Ann Romano, AKA the Windy City Nanny. So, I'm sure many of you are already quite familiar with her. She is also an author, a philanthropist, and a childcare advocate who has always had a special place in her heart for children. Florence Ann worked as a nanny for over 15 years and believes the key to a family's success lies in focusing on what she calls the trifecta: parent, child, and the caretaker working in unison together toward common family goals. Florence Ann is the co-host of the podcast Finger Painting the Future and the YouTube series Windy City Nanny. Her children's book, Nanny and Me, prepares children for the transition from being cared for solely by their parents to having a nanny in their home. She has been featured on many national programs, including Home and Family, The Doctor and the Diva, Fox News, Good Day Chicago, WGN, The Jenny McCarthy Show, Sirius XM, and a ton more. So I am very excited to have you here. Welcome, Florence Ann.
Hi, what an introduction. My goodness, I'm sitting here about to faint because you're just so sweet. Oh my goodness.
Well,
It's great to
it's funny when a person hears all of those things. It's like, wow. Sometimes you just don't realize how fabulous you are
Oh
until
gosh,
somebody reads the list.
I don't know. I don't know if I feel fabulous or just tired.
Right,
I
right.
don't know. But I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be able to talk about this and bring light to this. It's just so topical right now. And I know every parent out there is like, okay, what do I do? Because this is uncharted territory in a lot of ways.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. There are so many things that I think we kind of had a model for, a paradigm for, before, and now
Right.
all of a sudden it's like all the rules are out
Right.
and the floodgates of everything are wide open and no one is immune,
Right.
including even our little ones. And
Yes.
that's that's a scary thing in a lot of ways. And for sure, there are so many people that are like, whoa, I didn't think I'd be in this position or having to have this conversation, now, let
Right.
alone some of it ever, but a lot
Right.
of it,
Right.
at these younger ages. So I want to talk through like the trouble that parents may be having explaining to their kids what is going on in
Right.
our country and why.
Right.
So I thought, if it's okay with you, we would kind of focus on three general areas and we'll just see where they take us. I
Yes.
want to talk about discernment, like what to believe, who to believe, because they're getting a lot of conflicting information,
Right. Right.
right? Demonstrating, like parents' behavior, being the example. What should you be demonstrating to them? And then the other piece would be discussions, like determining what age or what is age appropriate,
Sure.
and then how to encourage their kids to talk to them.
Right.
So let's start with discernment. How do we help them understand that everything that they hear on TV, the news, social media, um, teachers, friends, I mean, it's coming at them from all ways. How do we help them understand that all of that stuff from friends and other adults, it's not necessarily always accurate. It's not necessarily always the truth or all of the facts, right?
Right.
How do they sort through it all?
I think it's funny when we talk about how do we sort through the truth with our children, when I think as adults, we have a hard time sorting through the truth as well. We are bombarded with media every day, depending on the channel you're watching or listening to or whatever it is. It feels like the world is full of more opinions than facts these days.
Yeah.
And so, where do you find that discernment? What is factual? Well, someone may say, the Chicago Tribune is what I think is factual. And then someone else says, no, I think the Chicago Sun-Times is what's factual. So, the idea of discerning where you find your information, generally, it's going to come down to who you agree with
Yeah.
and who has your values or your point of view. Now, we're not supposed to live in a world where we only listen to the people that speak the same language as us and feel the same things as us and view the same things the same way as we do. We're supposed to be this melting pot for a reason. We're supposed to look at the world and think, what can we learn from over here and this nook and cranny and all of that. But we live in such a polarizing world now in
Mhm.
so many ways that I think we're all retreating to what feels comfortable. So, how do we talk to our children about where do you find the facts? And unfortunately, that's going to come down to your household and the values of your household.
Mhm.
Now, you may decide as the parent, I'm going to raise my kid with these values, these ideals, these principles. And as they
Mhm.
get older, they can start making decisions for themselves, thinking for themselves about certain things, but I'm going to give them this foundation.
Mhm.
Now, it gets difficult when the kids get older, when they start questioning what it is that you have taught them because they heard something at school from
Mhm.
such and such, or they heard from someone else's parents, or they
Right.
saw something on TV. How do you have a conversation with them about someone else's point of view that's different from yours? And so for me, it's not so much how do you find the facts, because we're going to have a ton of media and publications to choose from. And I don't always believe everything I read and every single thing
Right.
I'm reading. Like I
Right.
said, more opinions than facts today.
Mhm.
But teaching your children how to research, teaching your children that you have to see different sides of an argument or a story or a situation or a circumstance, teaching your child that being educated is the power, using their mind is the power, and listening to people is the power, and understanding that you're going to have to sometime agree to disagree, and you're
Mhm.
going to have to come from a place of kindness and come from a place of tolerance and come from a place of understanding, and also an open mind and an open heart. Doesn't mean you have to agree with the person, but I
Yeah.
think those values are what's important to me in terms of laying that foundation for discernment.
Yeah, I love that, and I think you're right. I mean, especially you have to really, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit when we get into the more particulars about discussion, but the age that they are, it really matters,
Mhm.
right? I mean,
Right,
you are, at a certain age, right, you really want to encourage them to do some research and learn how to use their brains
right,
and use their capabilities. But then there are certain younger ages where they're not quite prepared to do that yet.
right, right.
So there's that. Yeah.
Right. My
All
dad
right.
always said that you always want to know just a little bit enough to be dangerous. And I love that because that's in my life. I'm always like, I'm never going to be an expert at everything, but I always wanted to be that girl that in any social situation, you could drop me in and I could have an intelligent conversation.
Yeah.
Not that anyone would have to think that I'm an expert in that field, but that you
Right.
can speak intelligently, argue intelligently about
Mhm.
something. When you see people have conversations and they're not arguing intelligently or coming from a place of any sort of substance, that's when you start to lose respect for the argument that you're having or even the person themselves, because
Mhm.
you want to be able to come to the table and be educated about it, be informed about it. So if we
Mhm.
can teach our children that, again, education is power, being informed is power, and being open to those give and take conversations, I think that's the best way for
Mhm.
us to eventually get to a place where kids feel they're ready for the real world. They're ready when they're older to be able to go out there and be an active member of society and also a kind member of society. I think kindness
Yeah.
is key today.
I'm so glad you said that because that does seem to be a massively missing link in all of the discourse that's going on. Um, yeah, and I think we'll circle back around to that too, because it's so important when you can't have respect and kindness,
Right.
everything just devolves, and the importance of the subject at hand just gets lost.
Right. Right.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, demonstrating. What can you tell parents? What would you like them to know about how their energy and their reactions can affect their kids?
This is a big hot button topic for me because I grew up in a household, a multi-generational household. I was
Mm,
old school Italian. My grandparents lived with us growing up, my mom's parents. So I had my mom, my dad, my nana, my papa. I'm the oldest of four kids. We had
mm,
lots of people in the house. And my parents are extremely opposite. My dad was a yeller and my mom never did. Mom would just give you the eyes, just some big eyes, and you knew you were in trouble. And so you just run the other way. So I learned a lot from both my parents about communication and the expression of emotion because they both did that differently. But fast forwarding to my adult life, what I've noticed, especially with how polarizing politics have gotten, and I am not like, if you went on my Instagram, I'm not a political person. I don't speak about politics in any way, shape, or form, unless it has to do with children. And then I'm
mhm.
like, okay, I can talk about kids. But
Yeah.
but what I noticed and noticed recently is that children are aware of their parents when they are shouting at the TV or writing something angry. They're picking up on that energy. And I know parents don't want to believe that they're not paying attention or it's not affecting them. And the best way I can describe it is when you have a newborn baby and the baby's crying and crying and crying, and you're holding that baby and you cannot soothe this baby for anything.
Mhm.
And then your friend comes over and takes that baby from you, and the baby stops crying. And the mom looks at you and thinks, this kid hates me. It's my fault. And that's not it. Your child doesn't hate you, but your
Right.
child does pick up on the energy because you're nervous that you can't soothe her. That's what's making her nervous too. So children are the same. They absorb that their whole lives. We as adults do the same thing. We pick up on the energy around us, on the feeling of the room. And so when you're screaming at the TV, you're sending a very clear message to your child that when you disagree with something, that screaming and yelling about it or cussing or whatever you want to do is the right way to react. I'm not saying minimize your feelings or don't teach children to have feelings or express themselves, but understand that they're watching how you react. You are their first teacher in life, and you will always be their teacher in some capacity. So I'm kind of asking everyone to do that gut check moment with
Mhm.
themselves. How
Mhm.
do I react when things don't go my way? Or how
Mhm.
do I react when I'm triggered in some way? I'm not saying don't have a reaction or don't even have an emotional reaction. I'm saying react in a way that would make your child proud, in a way that you'd want your child to react to.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I would
seeing
say, react responsibly.
that's
Just right. I
pretty
mean,
simple. Yeah, react responsibly.
react responsibly. React to your point. I mean, how do
Right,
you want them to
right,
respond to things?
right,
Um, and and I think that it's so easy for people to forget. Like if they think back to when they were children,
right,
I know, like for me, if I think back to, if my dad walked in the room and he was upset or frustrated or angry about something, he didn't even have to say anything and you felt it,
right.
right? You feel
Yes,
the energy as a child. You know, "Ugh, something's not right here." So
100%.
yeah, and I think probably almost every adult had that experience, if not with their own parents, with somebody else in one way, shape, or
Absolutely.
form when they were a kid. So if you just think back and remember that, you will go, "Oh yeah, you know what? That's true." And you can even, you don't even have to be a child to pick up on it. You can pick up on it as an adult in any situation. You can feel
Right,
other people's energy. But
right.
to your point, kids are really, I think, even more sensitive to it.
They are.
They're
They
just
are.
like little sponges, and we're all these vibrating masses of energy. So we're picking up on each other's frequency, and they are absorbing all of that.
They
Not
are.
to mention observing your behavior, and your
Yes.
behavior, right, is teaching them how to behave.
Absolutely. And it's funny to me because we always say, we want our kids to behave a certain way, but we also have to understand that we can't say these are rules for thee, but not for me. You have to walk the same walk and talk the same talk. I think
Right.
it's easy for us to say act this way, and then they see you doing something that's contradictory to that. So you have to find a way to be that example. And I'm not saying you're going to do it perfectly every time. You're not going to do it perfectly probably half the time.
Yeah.
Failure is not a dirty word. I always say failure is the other F word. It's, no one wants to fail. Everything has to be perfect. Parents put all this pressure on themselves to be the perfect parent, to do the perfect thing, to have the perfect kids, whatever it is. And that perfection just doesn't exist. And so in
Mhm.
this conversation as well, please give yourself some grace and know that you're not going to do this perfectly every time, and you're going to have emotional outbursts just like your child is going to. It's
Mhm.
just that if you can be conscious of it, that awareness changes the whole vibration. And
Yeah.
I think that's all I'm asking parents to do, is have that awareness, because you'll see things change if you do.
Yeah, exactly. It's really, really a key piece. I think that a lot of people are aware, but there are a lot of people that aren't taking that into consideration at all. And it can just really shift the dynamics if you just become consciously aware of it. Perfect. So, okay. Um, I know that you don't get into the political stuff, and we're not going to do that, but I have a question about how to help your older kids that are picking up on this. So, I mean, naturally, most parents, as we spoke about a few minutes ago, they want their kids usually to share their political views. And we all think our way is the better way, right? But
Mhm.
if you have teens who are receiving info from a lot of different sources, and some of it is, it's varied. Some of it
Right.
may be very one-sided, obviously, to put
Right.
it mildly. So,
Sure.
right, try, trying to be
Sure.
respectful and delicate here.
Right.
But
Exactly.
but so how would you suggest that parents maybe guide them without overly influencing them, like when they're at that age, teenagers, they're there, they're getting it because they're also getting it, from so many sources now. So in what ways can parents encourage their kids to form their thoughts and decisions about the topics, the current events that aren't coming from a place of fear or guilt? And I think, you referenced earlier that of course we can encourage them to do their own research and try to find opposing views, so that they've got s- a wealth of information
Mhm.
from all angles.
Mhm.
Um, th- that and I think that's definitely absolutely an important piece. But when you are, what if you're like the outlier and you're like, "Oh, I don't really feel like I agree with 99% of the people I'm around or my peers or whatever."
Sure.
How to, just giving them some tips maybe on how to not feel guilt or shame about not agreeing with the crowd.
I think that's also a big part of the climate we live in today, that certain people don't want to voice their opinions because they feel like they're wrong or they're going to be shamed for it.
Yeah.
And so I think when you do feel that you are standing out for the wrong reasons, you kind of have to take the temperature of the room. How open is this group to
Mhm.
hearing my side of it? Do I feel like this is a safe space for me to have a conversation? Sometimes it's not worth it. Sometimes you don't want to get in that fight. Sometimes you don't want that negative energy. You don't want to be that
Mhm.
center of attention. You don't want to stick out in that way. That would be my advice to
Mhm.
anyone out there, that, if you feel compelled to voice your opinion, you can always do it in a way that is respectful. You can always do it in a way that you can take pride in that moment, for how you handled yourself. Uh,
Mhm.
but it's it is about reading the room. I honestly,
Yes.
and I think that's kind of how I operate my life. Like sometimes I'll be with a group of people and they'll be talking about something, and they are totally on one side of the political spectrum, and I'm over here totally alone in mine, and I'm like, I'm just going to be quiet. I don't want to start a fight, and I
Right.
don't. And it's sad because you wonder, are they going to judge me? Are they going
Mhm.
to think less of me because of how I feel, because I'm not falling in line with them? And
Mhm.
then we open up this can of worms to how you develop friendships and how you develop safe friendships. And are you only going to be friends with people that think the same way you do? And,
Mhm.
so it's teaching children about relationships also.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really important lesson right from the sandbox about how do you create these relationships, and why are you friends with people that have different points of view than you and look different than you, and all of that, because that's what makes a big eclectic beautiful life, and we all should benefit from each other's differences. But right now, especially, everything is so heightened that I think everyone's afraid to step to the right, step to the left, step to the back, to the front, because am
Yeah.
I going to do something wrong, offend someone?
Right.
It's hard. So we are raising children right now, that are children, at least that can understand, in a very, very turbulent environment that's very sensitive too. So I think when there's that old saying, when you don't know what to do, you should sit still. And I think sometimes that it is the best advice, is to sit still,
Mhm.
listen, learn, educate yourself. But then going back to these older kids, for me, it was always a communication thing with my
Mm.
parents. My mom was always much easier to talk to about things that maybe were different than how we were raised than my dad. My
Yeah.
dad was strict. My dad, it was his way or the highway. And so I never felt comfortable talking to my dad about things that I was questioning,
Mhm.
because I felt like he would say then I was being bad.
Mhm.
And so this can go deeper into, childhood stuff. So I
Right.
would go to my mom for those conversations. So for my advice to you parents is, never let your children feel like they can't come to you in any way, shape, or form. There are parents that do not want to talk to their children about the birds and the bees. They don't want to say it. It makes them uncomfortable. And then
Mhm.
in my mind, I think, do you want them to go learning from the internet or from someone else that's not going to give them proper information? So, that's a very extreme version of this, but the idea that you parents are their safe place, you are those people that will sit there and listen to them and talk through something with them, that's the most valuable thing you can do for your children. I know for me, that relationship with my mother was a lifesaver in so many ways, because she
Yeah.
never made me feel judged, never made me feel shamed, never made me feel like I was doing something wrong. She was in the business of listening to me and helping try to shed light on
Yeah.
stuff too, and having a give and take conversation.
Mhm.
So if you can do that as a parent and put your own stuff aside, because that's your stuff, if you're going to sit there and get mad at your child for daring to question something, they're not sitting there telling you that they disagree with you or that they think the way you raised them was wrong. They're asking to be educated. They're
Mhm.
asking for you to help them understand.
Right.
So I think parents sometimes have to take a step back from their own kind of fog and
Yeah.
think, my child is a disappointment to me because they're not me. Well, they're
Mhm.
not supposed to be you.
Right.
You gave them their foundation, and now you're going to help them grow to be this version of whoever they are, not a mini version of you. So that's probably on a different tangent right now, but it all kind of encapsulates this
Yeah.
idea of communication.
Yeah, yeah, it's all connected. I I can relate to your experience too, girl. I had that same experience. Mom was the one that could switch into take her mom hat off and take her, teacher, put her teaching hat on or her friendship hat on, you know what I mean? And you could feel comfortable talking about things. But yeah, dad, that was a different story, right?
And I
So
probably could have a separate conversation about that would go on hours.
right, right, right. So we'll have to bring you back on for that one, but yeah, so if you are a two-parent family and
Mhm.
as adults, you can look at each other and go, "You know what? I'm not good at this." It's okay for one to take the lead. I
Of
mean,
course.
one is better than none, right?
And it doesn't have to be a parent either. The village is big. I hope your village is big and your tribe
Right.
is full of people. I have learned so many different things from the people in my village, and my mother, of course, is my best friend. But I also know that my mom depended on her parents, my nana and papa, to be part of my stability, my education, my foundation, my values. So you parents, give yourself a little bit of a break here to think that you have to be the be all and the end all to them, that you have to have the answers to every single question, that you have to know how to guide them perfectly through every scenario. Absolutely not. That's why you have friends and family and people you lean on. So you can turn to them and be like, I have no clue how to address this issue. I don't have any experience with it in my life. Can you
Right.
help me figure out the words? Or can you be with me when I have this conversation? Or hey, can she talk to you?
Mhm.
That's beautiful. That's
Mhm.
village. That's what I think, at least, that childhood and raising children is about. It's about the
Right.
whole.
Right. Oh, I love that. That's so true. I mean, use your resources, right? Like you said, if you are fortunate enough to have that, if you have as parents, brothers or sisters or your parents are there so that your children have aunts and uncles or
Right?
cousins or grandparents or best friends that can help you, tag them in, right? Take
Right.
advantage.
Tag, you're it. You're gonna
Yeah.
deal with this situation. It doesn't make
And
you a bad parent. Doesn't make you, makes you a great one. Makes you
it
an amazing one.
It really does, and I think it really strengthens just the family value system, the
Right.
unit that, in your children know that, you know what, there's always, Aunt so and so or Uncle so and so or this family member or this close family friend that's like family. There's always someone if you need to go to someone for whatever reason and you can't come to us, you can go to them.
Right.
And so they have like this bigger support system and
Yeah.
that's a nice feeling for kids to have, and so necessary right now because
Uh,
they've all had their own experiences too. They could have so
absolutely.
much valuable input to share that,
Right.
from their perspective and their life
Right.
experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk a little bit. We've touched on it somewhat, but let's go into more on age appropriate discussions. And
Mhm.
you mentioned it a minute ago, like, okay, some people are just not ready to have that conversation about, about gender and sex and all
Sure.
those things. And, a lot of in the past, you were able to, if you were going to have it, you were pretty much able to put it off until the teen years.
Yeah.
Not
Not
anymore.
anymore, not with the internet.
Not with the internet and not with
No.
what is being, brought up in school for a
Right,
lot of
right.
super young. I mean, our babies. It's ridiculous.
It
So,
is.
now your choice has been taken away from you to
Mhm.
have that conversation when you feel you and your child are ready,
Right,
and you are forced to you're confronted with it
right.
now and before anybody's ready. So, I don't know if you've got any advice on that, because that's just I can't even imagine. My kids thankfully are they're grown. They're in their 30s. I don't have to deal with that now, but I feel for everyone that does because that seems like a very, very tricky, uncomfortable, tough situation.
It is, and I think that my best advice for parents is, I'm not asking you to be your child's friend. You will get to be your child's friend at a certain point in life, and that will be the payoff of raising those kids. I'm asking you, though, that you are interested in your kids, that you're dedicated to your kids, that you are involved in their lives. You know who their friends are. You know how they feel about something. You are the one driving them back and forth from those sports or driving their friends around. Now, if you're a working parent, this is not me saying you should feel guilty that you can't be there every single time. But being involved doesn't mean you have to be a stay at home mom or dad. I'm just saying, make sure you know what's going on in your child's life, because they're going to open up to you about the things they're hearing then and the things that are going on. My mom used to tell me when she would drive us around when we were younger, me and my friends, she's like, I don't know if you guys thought there was like an invisible window, like me driving and you guys back there and I didn't hear what you were saying. But my friends talked very freely in front of my mother. So she said her favorite place to be growing up with me was in the car with my friends because we talked. She
Mhm.
heard all the gossip. She heard what was going on. So she felt like she was a part of it. So when things would come up in school or topics would come up, I never felt like my mom wasn't already part of the conversation. So be a part of your kids' conversations. Don't be a helicopter parent and, what are you doing and what are you saying and all that sort of thing. Just
Mhm.
be accessible and be aware of what's
Mhm.
going on. it's going to have to be reactive in a lot of ways. You're not going to be able to anticipate sometimes the things that they'll learn and do. But you and your tribe, you and your village, your friends that you have conversations about what's happening with their children as well. What are they
Mhm.
learning? What are they feeling? Are they struggling with anything? Maybe that's going to give you insight too to maybe what your children are feeling or struggling with.
Yeah.
It's a community, and it is an all hands on deck situation.
Mhm.
And as much as you can anticipate, great, prepare yourself for it. But the way I think to prepare yourself, the parent or the caretaker, whomever you are, is being an active and present part of your child's life.
Yep. That's so tr I mean, it really it can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be complicated. You just gotta show up
Just show up.
consistently.
That's exactly it. Just show up. And that's what they crave. They
Mhm.
crave that you are going to be present and be involved and take an interest in them. You
Mhm.
know, you can't be everywhere at one time. And I understand that. And again, I'm not asking for perfection here, just asking that your children know that you care, you're there, and you're aware is basically what's, kind of going on. I think in terms of their health, their life, their friends, whatever it is. um,
Mhm.
Kids, just like adults, want to feel heard, want to be seen. All of those same
Yeah.
rules apply. We never really
Yeah.
grow out of wanting that.
Right, right. Everyone wants to be acknowledged
Hmm.
and feel like, if they have something to say that it's taken seriously, it has
Right,
value.
right.
Yeah. And I think that's probably maybe another good point as a reminder to parents, right? Is if you are fortunate enough that you can get your teen or your child to open up and start talking a little bit, they'll keep doing it if
Hmm.
they get a positive reaction from you, if
Yes.
they get support, or if at least
Yeah.
they get understanding and empathy, just something rather than having it be minimized what they have to say, or somehow discounted,
Right.
or told that no, that's not the right way to think about this, or don't do that, or I don't have time for more of this, we'll talk later. I mean, all of those things, you have an opportunity, depending on how you react to what they're sharing, right,
Absolutely.
to
Reaction is everything. And you
mhm,
kind of have one chance to make a good first impression with them about it. If you have a bad or a negative reaction to the first time they're opening up to you, or they feel judged or shamed, they're not going to do it again.
right, yeah, because why would they?
Why would and you wouldn't as an adult? I mean, you'd spill your guts to your friend at one point, and they make you feel, that embarrassed, or they judge you, and you're just like, well, I'm never going there again. So,
Mhm. Yeah,
don't ruin that shot, that you have
yeah.
with your kid, to start creating that foundation. Because they say little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. Well, I understand that saying, but also I think little kids can have big problems too, and it's big to them. You can't
Mhm.
minimize that. It might seem like a little issue, but for them it's their whole world.
Yeah.
You're in high school and you think it's never going to get better. Sometimes high school is a really hard time. You think you
Yep.
can't even see past it.
Ugh.
And your parents look at you and think you'll get through it. It will be okay, whatever, we all go through this. But when you're that sophomore in high school that's going through it, you're like, literally nothing else in my life matters. This
Mhm.
is the thing that's killing me.
Mhm.
So minimizing people's pain or what they're going through and saying, oh, you'll just get through it, or, whatever, just, you don't want to discard something like that. Even if the message is just keep going, it will get better. The delivery of that matters.
Mhm. Yeah. And how is there something that we can do better to help you? How
Hmm.
can whatever the struggle is, or the challenge is, whatever is up for them, besides all of those wonderful things, I mean, don't forget to say, is there something we could do a little differently that would help you?
Yes, perfect. Beautifully,
Right?
beautifully said. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I wanted to say too, well, before I lose the thought, teaching, you said this a few minutes ago, teaching your kids that are old enough to understand what you mean by this, how to read the room is so important. Just giving them a few basic pointers. I mean, a lot of adults should probably learn that too.
Yeah,
So maybe it's something you can all learn together. But
exactly.
I'm sure if you Google it, there's like 7 ways to learn how to read the room kind
True.
of thing, right?
Google everything these days, but whoever thought you'd have to learn to do that? Doesn't that seem like, how do you teach someone to do that? I
Mhm.
bet it seems like that should just be instinctual, but honestly, it's something that I think is a new skill that needs to be taught. And I think we
Yeah.
all probably need a refresher course in it,
Yeah.
and that also comes down to self-awareness. There's a
Yeah.
lot of layers to that reading the
Right.
room. So,
Right. Right.
but I think it's a good thing to have a conversation with your children about what does that mean?
I think so too. I wanted to really kind of just emphasize that because I think it's really important. And then the other thing too, I think is, excuse me, with what is going on now with just everything chaos, everything seems to be chaos on every level.
Mhm.
So, what do you think about, how can parents keep reminding themselves, I guess, that okay, this chaos, this stress, this uncertainty, these are these are opportunities for teaching moments,
Yep.
right?
I always say that in life that you have to control what you can control. And there's always controllables. There are always, and you have to kind of give the things you can't control up to whomever it is, if it's God or the universe or, the void, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
You have to learn what you can control in life. And I think when chaos is going on around you, my advice to my friends and family has always been, in the moment of chaos, there is a place you can take control. There always is. And so that's the lesson you need to teach your children and teach yourself, is that when you're feeling that you're spinning out, how do you get that control back? And maybe it's this simple. Maybe it's, the world out there hurts right now and it's scary and I don't want to really be a part of it, whether it's the pandemic or racial issues or whatever it is. It hurts and I don't want to be a part of it. I need to retreat for a minute. Well, what does that mean then? Maybe that means you turn off the TV. You don't need to have it on 24/7. And maybe that's your way of getting control, saying, I don't need to take that in right now. What I
Mhm.
need is to put on some music and light a candle and just be alone with my thoughts or read a book or whatever it is. It's the simple little actions that you can take that regain bits of control. Because everyone thinks when you talk about controlling the situation that you're going to fix the situation.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. You're trying to control what you can, and controlling yourself is the only thing you have control over.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. Your mindset, your attitude,
Right,
how you're responding rather than reacting,
right,
all of those things.
right.
And I think too that this is a lot of people have been doing this throughout this whole n- craziness that's been going on for over a year now, is coming back to some things that are just all about, okay, to your point, what can we control? We can literally have family time that we weren't having before.
Right,
We can just sit down and we can make a meal together or enjoy the meal together or play a board game together,
right.
watch a movie together, just those types of things are just, I think they're such an important part of the fabric of your family foundation, that that's just one opportunity that's presented itself. And I understand it's easier said than done a lot of times. I mean, I know there are a lot of people that are, this has been going on a long time now, and
No,
kids are like, okay, I can't play that game, for 500 times.
right.
I get, we've
Everyone's sick of each other now. They're like,
right.
I need to be
Yeah.
around other people. So,
Right,
yeah,
right. We're bouncing off the wall. So I understand that. But if you really if you try hard enough, you will continue to just get creative and find things that you can do that keep your family, keep your kids sort of in the present moment and out of the fear of what's going to happen, tomorrow or next week or next month or next year.
Right.
That fear of uncertainty about the future is just, it ruins all of the present moment, right?
Right.
And it doesn't have to. It doesn't mean that things don't need to be tended to and planned for, but it
Right.
also means you don't have to destroy all of your todays
Right.
worrying about the tomorrows.
Right.
You do what you can do, right? And then
Absolutely. You know, and the only thing we know to be true is that nothing stays the same and
yeah.
nothing's forever. And you look at even the pandemic itself, when the Spanish flu and all those things
Mhm.
happened in our past. I remember watching the news one day and it was just doom, doom, doom and gloom, gloom, gloom. And I'm thinking to myself, we have to look back at history. Eventually it does get better.
Yeah.
Eventually we will go back to normal. And that's why I always hated that phrase, the new normal. I'm like, no, it's the for now normal. We are going to go back to normal because that's what science is allowing us to do, where there's hope at the end of the tunnel, or light at the end of the tunnel, I should say,
Mm.
and hope at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
But it's this idea that if you sit there and wallow in this idea that it's always going to be this way,
Mhm.
it doesn't feel survivable. And to a
Mhm.
child, you don't want to tell them that this is how it is and it's never going to get better and you're just going to have to learn to deal with it. No, everyone needs hope in their life and something to look forward to. And I always said to myself during the pandemic, every day you were one day closer to the end
Mhm.
of the not the end of your life, but I mean, I guess that's true too. But you're
Right.
one day closer to the end of this pandemic, and
Yeah.
you are. I mean,
Yep.
that's what happens in life. So for now, take control where you can, find your joy where you can,
Mhm.
find your support where you can. Uh, it's about surviving the moment. And right now, parents, I know the buzzword for yourself for 2020 and even parts of 2021 here is survive. That's
Mhm.
really what it is in every different way that you can define that word. Remote learning, survive it. Lockdown, survive it. All these different things. And so sometimes you're in that circle of survive and thrive. And I think we all feel tired of surviving and we want to get to the thrive part. But
Yeah.
the good news is we're seeing that now
Mhm.
start to happen where that can come back. But life
Right.
is a circle. And you need to teach your kids that it's not always going to be easy and it's not always going to be fair.
Yeah.
And we were never promised a perfect life. So you have to
Well,
learn.
so true, so true. This, you could literally position it as, this is practice. This, we're just practicing. We're practicing our resilience. We're
Yes,
practicing our survival, mentality. We're
right,
practicing so that, when this phase is through, and if there should ever be another, hardship type of phase,
right.
no biggie. You're prepared, you're ready, and you already now know that, oh, we got through tough stuff before. We'll do it again.
Right. You have to know that you can handle it. I think that's what, it makes you stronger. And I think
Hmm.
all of us should, get a little pat on the back, a little badge of honor after all this and be like, yeah, we
Yeah.
were stronger than we thought. It's that Winnie the Pooh phrase, that you're stronger than you know, have more courage than you think, or all of that. And I'm not quoting it correctly, but it's true. I
Yeah.
don't think any of us realize how strong you are until you have no other choice. And that's what we saw here. We saw
Exactly.
humanity band together and say, we're
Hmm.
going to be strong.
Yeah. So, yeah, making sure that we're conveying that message
Mhm.
to our kids.
Yes.
It's yeah, so important. That was awesome. Do you have time to share a going rogue story with us,
I
Florence
would
Ann?
love to. I would love to. It's the best question to ask me currently because I don't know if I would have had an answer to the question even just a few weeks ago.
Mm.
So, going rogue, the way I've kind of defined it is, when I took a leap of faith and decided to be brave and just do something different against the grain. So, I'm 35 and I made a promise to myself years ago that if I was not married, that I would freeze my eggs and consider having a baby on my own. And so I turned 35 in the fall in October. I will be 36 coming up this year. And I'm happy to say that just this past Friday, I returned home from Colorado where I went through an egg retrieval surgery. And it was successful. I got a bunch of eggs, which is great. I have to go back in June and do a second one because I have opted to do unfertilized eggs and also fertilized eggs by donor sperm. And this round, I fertilized all of them. And now I'm waiting to find out about all the testing. But the plan is after my second retrieval in June, that I will start another round of IVF to try and get pregnant.
Wow.
So I never thought I would ever say those words out loud,
Yeah.
that I would be attempting single motherhood by choice.
Yeah.
But this is one of those situations, folks out there listening, that I can't control whether or not I fall in love today, tomorrow,
Mhm.
or ever, but I
Mhm.
can control whether or not I'm a mom. And that's something I want. So I'm taking control of my life.
That is a fantastic going rogue story, and I'm pretty sure out of the, well, hundreds that I've received, that's the most that might be the most unique one. That's
Oh,
amazing.
yay. Okay.
Yeah,
I like
I
that.
did not see that one coming at all. I mean, they're all always great, and one of the reasons that I asked them because I think it's so awesome to be able to share a story like that, that you've made a decision that was, really maybe unique, or you were going in one direction and then you totally spun around and went in another direction. Whatever. It's going rogue by your standard,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then it just gives other people kind of a little bit of inspiration to maybe do something that they might consider a little crazy, or something they were afraid to do, but it's really calling them. So, back to our demonstration, we give other people kind of permission to do the same. It
Right.
encourages them. So that was a fantastic story. Thank you for sharing that. That's like super personal, and it's major. I mean, want to make a person. You're going to make a person, and you.
I know. I can't believe I'm attempting to do that either, but it feels right, and I'm leaning in. I'm leaning into the
Love it.
courage to do it, and I would never be able to do it if I didn't have a village to lean on.
Mhm.
And I'm excited for this next chapter. I'm
Yeah.
excited
Oh,
for the possibilities of it. And for any of you out there that need a nudge to be a little brave today,
yeah.
be brave. You've got nothing to lose. It takes a lot of
Mm.
soul searching, but you know yourself. And I spent time and thinking about it a lot and talking about it a lot. And I'm scared. I am so scared. And I want people to understand
Mm.
that going rogue doesn't mean you feel comfortable. Most of the time when
Right.
you do something like that, you're going to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's not the scary that, like, I see a clown and I'm scared. It's the scared, like, oh, this is exciting scared.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a lot of like nervous excitement and anticipation. And, it's a step into, even though you've been literally a professional. I mean, I can't imagine anyone more equipped and skilled than a professional nanny to decide to be a mother. But
Oh,
still,
thank
it's
you.
still, it's your process now. It's going to be your journey,
Right.
and so that is going to be new. I mean, you of course will come with built-in instructions, unlike most of us, but
But
an
you know what?
experience.
As much experience as I may have, it is when it's yours, when it's your
Yeah,
child, it's the first time you're going through it yourself and all that. It's You're all in it together.
right, right.
And so that's why I think it's really cool to be bonded in that way to
Mhm.
other people, where you kind of all are part of this little club together once you've done it. Like, even when I was in
Oh,
Colorado and going through all of it, I was talking to other women who were doing it, and they said, you're now part of this little secret society of fertility. And they always say, when you know, you know. And if you know, you know. And I didn't realize what they meant until I started going through it. And I was like, now I know what it's
mhm.
like to go through shots every day and all of it. And so sometimes it takes that life experience before you can feel that really deep empathy for something.
Mhm.
It's easy to say, you know that must be hard, or I
Mhm.
try to imagine how it feels.
Yeah.
But there's just a different level of
Mhm.
understanding that comes with actually going through it yourself.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like when somebody loses somebody close to them. If you haven't had that experience yet, you can logically, you can be compassionate. You can imagine, try to imagine what they're going through, and you can be empathetic and all of those things. But until you go through it yourself,
Right.
there's some layers that you just don't hit
Right.
until you're in them yourself, right?
And
And
that's what parents always say too about becoming parents.
hmm
Once you've got that kid and you're like, okay, now I understand what it means to love in a different way. People always talk about loving in a different way
hmm
until, I'm looking forward to knowing what that unlocks in me. I know what it feels like to love, but I haven't experienced that part of my heart yet because, it's got a little key that my baby's holding. So I got
yeah,
to wait until I get her to unlock
yeah.
it.
Oh, that's a great metaphor. I love that. And it's so appropriate. That's perfect. Oh, my dear, this has been just wonderful. I'd love before I let you go, because I know you have a lot going on, but I'd love for you to share, your social media or your website, wherever you want to send people to find out more about you.
I would love you to go to my IG, Windy City Nanny. I am constantly on there and I answer every DM I get. So never feel like you can't reach out to me. I'm here for you. I always like to think of like the friend that you want to go over and sit on the couch with and chat. I want to be that friend virtually for you. So please feel like I'm here. And Windy City Nanny, my website, you can go take a look around. I have blog after blog about different topics that we've even touched on today and many more. But like I said, I really want you to feel like I am that virtual hug you need or that pep talk or whatever it might be. We're all in this together. I want you to feel seen, heard, loved, valued. I always say three things. You need to build your village, let love in, and ask for help. And that's what I'm here to help you do.
Beautiful. That was awesome. Thank you so, so much. This has been delightful. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. There's so many
Oh
other
my
things that would be
gosh,
fun to
me too. What fun
dive into.
chat. I know. I would be honored to see you again.
Well, that would be wonderful. I think you will, because I've already got a couple of things. I'm like, ooh, I need to talk to Florence Ann about this and this. So you will be hearing from me again. But thank you for today, and everyone. That is a wrap. I'm so glad that you hung out with Florence Ann and I, and hopefully you feel more confident about having some conversations with your kids, whatever their ages are, about current events and where things are headed and anything else that is up for you. So please share this with anyone that you know that could probably use a little bit of inspiration around that topic. We have to spread the good shift around, you guys, so don't be shy. Make sure you share it and give us a review. That would be delightful. It really helps inspire other people to listen to all of the good stuff we're sharing here. Until next week, stay feisty, my friends. Stay healthy. Stay engaged with your kids and go make some epic shift happen in your lives. That goes for you too, Gary V.